So many people get into this industry looking at the fun parts of it and not the administrative or operation parts. And I almost think anybody can be creative and anyone can host a wedding. Anyone could be a planner because like the nuts and bolts is what I'm talking about, right? There's like the superficial planners that do day of and they get to hang out and do like the fun stuff. But the real nuts and bolts, planning and organizing and the staffing, and like it really takes a person who has some experience, or you're going to take your lumps and it's not going to be fun until you develop those systems.
In some senses, someone who doesn't have the experience you're talking about will look at what we charge and say, oh, wow, that's expensive. But that is, in most cases, what it costs. And we do it off of a revenue share model. So we're putting ourselves on the line to go perform to be able to do that. And so it's like, oh, that's like, if it's a 50% split, it's like, I'm going to do everything, your staffing, your marketing, like everything for 50%. And you're just going to get the check and have to keep the lawn mowed. Like, that's a decent deal. And people don't realize it unless they've read.
Welcome to the Venue RX. On this show, we document and share best practices around owning, operating, and managing world-class wedding venues.
What's up, everyone? Jonathan here with the Venue RX. Super excited to have someone who I recently connected with over Facebook, actually. And I really appreciated his really no-nonsense approach to our industry. He's got tons of experience under his belt. And so I'm really excited to welcome Joshua with Forever Farms Winery to the Venue RX. Thanks so much for being here today, man.
No, thanks for having me. We appreciate it. We've been following you for a long time, and we really think I really think you have a great perspective on how to operate and really just interacting with the community in ways that no one else is.
Awesome. Well, hey, we were just even before we came on the show talking about, you know, there is so much enthusiasm and excitement for venue owners who want to, you know, get in this industry, maybe even investors who want to get in this industry. But it's not just, I think you said like roses and parties, right? It's not.
Yeah. Well, and that's the truth. And I think that's what a lot, I get calls every week because of our zoning battles that went all the way to the Supreme Court in Ohio and all that stuff that we've been through. I get calls every week of people like, hey, I want to have a venue. I want to do. And I ask them some very clear questions. And if they have the wrong answers, I'm like, look, this is not going to work for you. Because it is such a, people think it is just showing up for parties. You have space. People give you money. They show up. They do all the work. You just get to sit and eat cake at the end of the night. And I'm not going to lie. I kind of thought that's how it was when I got into this industry, and having to be an operator. People don't understand the amount of time that goes in on the back end just for the venue to be open. There's so much in between it just to have someone else bring their own catering and their own decorations. And there's so much other logistics that as the venue you're looked to as the expert. And since the party's at your place, it's ultimately going to fall on you. So you can't just let a wedding be a train wreck because they're disorganized. Like, you got to step in during that day and fix a lot of stuff that you probably didn't get paid enough for. And people don't realize, like, it's not a hands-off business. This isn't a retirement business that you can, I got this barn on the back of my property. I'm just going to get $5,000 and they can have a wedding there. Like, the amount of work to be able to charge the prices you need to charge to make it worth your time. People just don't factor all of, it's like the Titanic, right? Like the event is, or the iceberg, like the event is just a very small portion of the entire amount of work to have one wedding. And that's all people see from the outside. And that's why people who come into the industry from outside of it, I think, have a really hard time adapting, especially retire. Like, I want to retire and do this. Like, no, you don't. Like, you're going to be working more and you're going to be making less money. Yeah. So I warn a lot of people, like it's what you came to event at my place and you had a great 4 or 5 hours. Well, I had about 40 hours into all of the logistics just to have this open. And so it's one of those, like you were saying on the Facebook, like you like my direct approach that a lot of people call rude, or mean. I've been kicked out of some groups from being a little too honest, I think, just because I don't have the empathy for people who want to cry. Like there's no crying in the wedding business. You just got to produce events and move on. And it's one of those being honest and just telling people the truth before they get into it. I tell people all the time who ask, oh, would I do this again? No, I would not. I'd buy Midas's and I would be running car repair franchises. I would not be hosting events. I would take all the money and I would do that, because just what this is someone's most important day, right? So like as the venue, you end up being their linchpin in a sense, because if something else bad happens at your place, all the guests are going to blame you. You're going to get the bad reviews. And we had one like really bad wedding. It was like looking back, my mother booked it. She does a lot of our tours and I come and go. I'm not always here. So I like knowing what I know now, like we would have never booked them. And now I know who not to book in the future after I'm like, I'll cancel them as soon as they give me the wrong problems. Because they had like 10 of their family members leave us 1-star reviews on Google, like all of them, because of one terrible group of people. Like they were terrible. I knew they were going to be terrible as soon as they came in for the rehearsal dinner. I always say, like, you can really tell the character of people by how they park. So our venue's up, kind of up on a hill. You drive past it and you park in the parking lot, and then you kind of walk a little bit up the hill. So my best brides and people ever always go down and park in the parking lot and walk up the hill. They follow the directions. It's part of the notes. People who just start parking in the turnaround and in the drop-off lane for rehearsals, like, it's going to be a nightmare all day, just because they have no respect for anyone except themselves. And like, it's a really hard balance to like deal with those type of people. And like, I bent over backwards for these people, like every little problem I solved, and yet they still drop 10 1-star reviews. And like that kills your Google. Like it took forever to get rebounded. And luckily I got Google to take some of them off, but it was one of those, like, one really bad bride will really hurt your business. And the amount of patience you have to have, people don't understand that. My mom routinely sews girls into dresses when their zippers break. My mom does alterations. That's partly how I got into the business. Is we kind of built it. Again, it was supposed to be kind of an investment for us, and she was going to manage it and do all the fun wedding stuff. And like I said, we didn't know what we didn't know when we started it, and that's why I warned people. I wish someone would have warned me.
Yeah. Well, and Joshua, before we get deep in, could you take us back and kind of give us a little bit of a background and origin story on you and how you got into the wedding industry? Because this, I mean, you were kind of starting to touch on it a little bit, but take me back, like pre-venue. I know you have a winery as well. It's a winery at Blueberry Farm as well, correct?
Yeah. So we started, we were storm chasers. We chased hailstorms. Hail would hit a city in the springtime, and we'd pick up and like move there within 3 days and start selling roofs. Get all the insurance companies to pay for a bunch of roofs, have our crews put them on, and then winter would come and we'd wait till the next spring and we'd go to another city. So my brother's doing that, so I started doing it with him, and we did work in Chicago, and we opened our own company, and we went to North Carolina, outside Charlotte. Then I was in Colorado Springs, Topeka, Kansas, South Carolina, Ohio, then back to North Carolina again. And during this time, my brother had met a girl and got engaged. And he's normally a smart person. Like, I normally think he's usually not dumb. He's lazy, but he's not dumb. So, it's one of those, like, you kind of trust his normal process of making decisions, right? So he gets engaged and we're traveling around, and this girl's from middle of nowhere, Kentucky, and they go back for a bridal show. They're going to do the wedding somewhere in Kentucky. And they go to this bridal show. And again, this was at least 10 years ago now. And this lady who was presenting, I don't know if this would fly anymore. I don't know, maybe it still does. But she literally had a hand drawing of what she was planning on building. And he gave her a deposit. Like, they hadn't even broke ground yet. And this wedding was 10 months away. It was sometime in January, and they booked an October thing. And like, normally he's a smart guy. Like, I'm like, wait, you just need a drawing and people are going to start giving you money? I'm like, that sounds like a good deal. And he convinced me that it was a great deal, that we could do this anywhere. And then at the time, again, there wasn't a ton of barns out there, especially new built barns, like there are now. And so we literally show up, and it was mostly like her drawing. I mean, it was a glorified pavilion, Post Beam glorified pavilion. There really wasn't anything that special or registering. She was booked up. Again, she was one of the first movers in her market, but she was booked up based on a hand drawing, no real renderings, no anything. And she took all of these deposits. And I think that really was like, I think that's partly people hear that story, even though it's a decade old now, and they think, oh, I could do it too. Let's do that. And I tell people, don't. It's a bad idea. There's a lot more that goes into it, especially depending on the market you're in. If you've been in the event space and you understand what your clients are looking for, and there's a gap in the market, yeah, that's a fine plan. And that's why you hear stories like hers, because there was nothing else there in Bowling Green, Kentucky, which had a very big university. There was nothing country horses like this in this market. So like, yeah, of course that's going to work really great. But you try to do that in Northeast Ohio right now, you're fighting over with everyone with a barn in their backyard. And, so it's one of those, that's how we got into it, not to get back into the today's story, but then so we built it, and all of a sudden, so we planted, where the plan was to be, pick your own blueberry farm with events. And in most states, agritourism is defined in certain different ways, where if you have a farm and you have a panda farm, and it's well, our township in Ohio did not like us calling that agritourism. They said we were running a business in a residential area and sued us. And kind of during that process, I'm like, okay, you guys don't like this whole agritourism idea, having weddings on farms. You're going to, and there was no real law at the time here in Ohio that defined agritourism. So I didn't want to make that argument. I wanted to make sure I could continue a business. No matter what the business was, we wanted to be able to have a business. We just built this big fancy barn. So there was other laws, Supreme Court cases and stuff in Ohio. And I'm like, okay, I can become a winery, and then I can now operate as a winery, and I can do what will be fine. And we could get all the exemptions. My brother said that was stupid, and he kind of basically quit the business, kind of walked away, and his wife and him were having problems in Kentucky. Different story there. But, so he's gone, and I'm like, look, we got to be a winery. I file all the paperwork. It took us over a year to get the federal permit to even apply for the state permit. And at this point we had gotten sued. because the township really just was like our trustees are just really do what I say or we're going to sue you. It's crazy. Like people don't understand small town politics. I didn't. It's way more complicated than people think. And so they were very, very adamant about us not being able to do anything. I'm like, look, I understand your argument. You don't like blueberry farms having weddings. I'll be a winery and we'll just do it this way. And they still sued us. Instead of letting us just comply and change our business model, to be able to comply with the law. Like, look, if you disagree, I'm not going to argue over that with you. So we went to court. We tried some arguments not to lose the first time because we were still waiting on all our permits. So we ended up actually being like weddings on farms are not permitted in the state of Ohio at this time. Because it's not in conjunction with the agricultural activity. Like if you just show up at a farm, they don't like it. So they had then passed an agritourism bill that actually defined it. And then people are all like, yeah, that's been to court twice in the past few years. Weddings on farms are not agritourism. Doing anything at a farm has to be what they call in conjunction with agriculture. So we were already becoming a winery. I'm like, look, we'll be a winery. We'll sell our wine. You can't tell a winery they can't have events, right? So we got that. Boom, we win, and then it goes all the way to the House Supreme Court. Lost like 3 years of our lives and revenue over that. Plus all the costs and whatnot. But so we went to the Ohio Supreme Court, and because the winery issue has already been settled, that wineries are agricultural, and our wine that we make is an agricultural product. Even if we bring in the juice, as long as we are growing grapevines, our wine is our agricultural product. So, now we get back opened up, and we got that Supreme Court ruling the month before COVID shuts down the world.
No, I was going to ask you timing about that. Oh man,
literally we're opening back up. Like, granted, we could have probably had events, but the wine I was making at the time was not good. And we were bringing in some juice. So in the state of Ohio, you can blend someone else's finished wine with your wine. Up to like 40% or something I think it's 40%. So we were bringing in juice to blend it with what I was making, and it wasn't very good. It wasn't worth trying to get people here to drink it. And then even if we lose, I didn't know what we were doing. And no sane person's going to book a wedding with, pending litigation that may or may not shut you down. Right. So yeah, COVID happened. And we got open back up, and we started working with a caterer, and it ended up, again, I was traveling a lot. I wasn't here. Again, operation stuff, people just don't realize that goes into things, really came into play then, knowing I wasn't here.
Yeah. And I'm curious. So you were doing this as well as the roofing business. Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, I bought a pirate ship. And I got really tired of the insurance game. And so I bought a pirate ship, and I sailed it from Boston to Cartagena, Colombia. And it took us 6 months to get permits and change the flags, even though my lawyer there said it was super easy. I have a lot of trust issues now over all these people. Lawyers saying that, just do this, this, and this, and it's easy. Well, but just because it's easy doesn't mean it doesn't take a lot of time. So
wait, really quick. Hold on. You just kind of breezed over the fact that you bought a pirate ship. So like,
yeah, I'll have to send you a photo that you could stick up at this park of the pirate ship.
Yes.
But yeah, no, I bought a pirate ship, and we went to Cartagena, Colombia, because it's an awesome historic place, and it's a pirate city. That's part of it's because of this place. It's Ohio, right? So we had more consecutive days below freezing than the history of recorded Ohio. And we're building this place. And like our contractors aren't showing up. No one's doing what they're supposed to. I end up finishing out with the whole interior with my dad as far as the kitchen, the loft, the bathrooms. Like we finished all of that just because our contractors just weren't showing up and it was miserable. And then I realized, okay, so Ohio is going to be very seasonal with this basically a glorified pavilion because all the doors and sides open. As you saw, like when we were trying to figure out the light, like all that is an open door that people can walk in and out of to get to the patio. So I'm like, oh man, this is going to be really seasonal, but it's the same season as roofing. So like my cash flow needs to be like more even than that. So I started looking for other businesses for sale. Like I said, Midas's, I should have probably gone that route, but I saw a lady selling a regular dumpy sailboat in St. Kitts, and I was really just fed up with how cold it was. But she was netting $200,000, taking 10 to 15 people out on a boat and like getting to swim and live ocean beach life. And I'm like, man, what? Like us.
You said Ocean Beach. This is not in Lake Erie. This is
no, she was in her business was in St. Kitts.
Okay.
And I'm like, man, that's just like a regular dumpy sailboat. Why would I want that? And then she wanted a crazy multiple. Because established businesses get crazy multiple sometimes when it's that kind of easy lifestyle business. And so I'm like, I could just buy a cooler boat and like do this somewhere I like better. Especially St. Kitts. That whole island area gets a lot of hurricanes. So there's a added risk and cost to that. So I started looking for a pirate boat and I started looking for a place to take it. And then I ended up meeting my wife in a Christian Facebook group. And I was like, hey, I need to practice Spanish because I'm buying a pirate ship and moving to Colombia. And she's like, oh, pick me. And she sent me some messages in Spanish for like 10 minutes. And then 50,000 in English later, we're married. I think from the first time we talked, it was 3 months till we met in person. And then I think 3 to 4 months after that, we were engaged. And 4 weeks after that, we got married at the beach with like 20 people. And then bought a pirate ship, moved to Colombia, had our first daughter there. And 6 months later, we got our permit, which was like right before Christmas. And then March, COVID shuts us down. So I had a good 3 months of giving pirate tours, telling a really cool pirate history of a really cool city. And I'm a firm believer stories are more important than facts and dates and actual history. So I took all of my favorite stories and we ran 2 tours. We ran a day trip out to a fort. So I would tell part of the story. There's one, it's called The Story of Jenkins' Ear. Guy got his ear cut off, not podcast story, but tell a story there. And I really crafted a really great story because that's what I think is important to people. So I was doing that before COVID. And also because like the winery, like we're fighting in court. We're waiting on Supreme Court. Like I didn't have to go after the initial trial. I didn't have to ever be back in court. The lawyer did everything. So I'm like, man, I'm just going to be a pirate. I'm going to throw my phone in the ocean. Again, people don't realize, again, this is still a hospitality business. And I guess that's partly like I was in hospitality with the weddings and that is just you get to tell better stories because you get to be a character in that hospitality setting, right? So we had rum lemonades and rum punch, and I told this really great story to a bunch of gringos who didn't speak Spanish, and pretty much only people speak Spanish in the city. So I was like the one gringo tour guide, and it was a lot of fun. I learned a lot about people, but it's one of those that's kind of I got into that because of this. And then COVID shut that down. We were back here and we were back in roofing again, full time.
Well, what'd you do?
And then I had
John,
it is a burns.
entirely separate episode. I'm going to have you back on. We're going to just talk about this whole pirate ship thing because I'm fascinated. But
yeah, no, it's currently operating. I have a management company that just recently, it's been about 6 months now, has been operating it. But up until then, like basically as soon as they opened the borders, we went back for 6 months and man, was it dead. So we came back again and we've been back and forth. We had a captain. It is 72 foot overall, 52 foot on deck, like 16 across the beam. So, I mean, legally we hold 50 people. So
okay, yeah, you're gonna.
Yeah, but we were taking out 2 and 3 people a day after COVID just to like cover some cost, right? Because same thing as in the wedding venue, and it's coming from a business like roofing. We started that business with $20 worth of flyers, and went and just knocked doors and sold millions of dollars of roofing, and then like a venue business, so all of our costs there are variable costs. So we're like a caterer. A caterer has almost no cost until they sell a product. Now a venue has 100% fixed cost. Whether someone is having a wedding or if you're getting paid or not, you have a cost. Just me turning on the lights today here, I have a cost. If I don't even show up, I have a cost. So it's a completely different way of doing business that I don't think people realize. If you get into the event space, you have costs, whether or not you have events. And I think people who get into it and they think, oh, if I can get $4,000 X amount of times, I can pay X, like it's bad math because you don't really know what stuff costs. Same thing as a fire chip. Like you don't know what stuff costs. I never went sailing. I'm not a sailor. Again, different story, but it's one of those similar type of everything's a fixed cost. So, we own the boat, that's a cost, and then our marina, that's a cost, and then our captain who manages it, like is there checking on it when we're not there and managing the team and making sure we have what we need to do the tours that we've sold. So it's it's honestly not that different. I mean, it's like a mini venue, except we're operating every day, right? So, you have a big fixed cost in a venue. And I don't think people realize how big a fixed cost it actually is. The ongoing costs are way more than people expect. In the group, the insurance thing is one of my like craziest quite like I just got quoted this insurance. I'm like, yeah, insurance in your region. You should know what it costs before you even start. Like if you're in Texas and you're building $1 million venue, yes, your insurance is going to cost 20 grand because you're going to get a hailstorm and your roof is going to cost 60. Like that's just a cost. Like again, it gets back to that. So many people get into this industry looking at the fun parts of it and not the administrative or operation parts. And I almost think anybody can be creative and anyone can host a wedding. Anyone can be a planner, but not everyone can be or maybe not everyone can be a planner depending on the level of, I want to take that back to all the planners out there. I didn't mean it. Because like the nuts and bolts is what I'm talking about, right? There's like the superficial planners that do day of and they get to hang out and do like the fun stuff, but the real nuts and bolts planning and organizing and the staffing and all of that stuff. Like it really takes a person who has some experience or you're going to take your lumps and it's not going to be fun until you develop those systems. And that's why like anyone who's like, hey, I need help with this, I'm like, hey, just call this guy and take some money. Like you don't want to do the work and like the money you're going to give him, you're just going to have to give other vendors or other employees or you're going to pay that cost no matter what. But you're going to have a learning curve to do it. I'm like, hey, this manages venues.
I love that you said that because a lot of the conversations, and I need to record some stuff for our website to kind of showcase that because a lot of it it in some senses, someone who doesn't have the experience you're talking about will look at what we charge and say, oh, wow, that's expensive. But that is, in most cases, what it costs. And we do it off of a revenue share model. So we're putting ourselves on the line to go perform to be able to do that. And so it's like, oh, that's like, if it's a 50% split, it's like, I'm going to do everything, your staffing, your marketing, like everything for 50%. And you're just going to get the check and have to keep the lawn mowed. Like, that's a decent deal. And people don't realize it unless they've.
Yeah. It's one of those, and I even see people, older people are like, yeah, we don't want to do the work anymore. We want to sell. And then they list their property for like $3 million, which probably isn't a terrible price. Again, I'm not like questioning people's valuations, but it's like the people getting into this industry don't understand how big of a, like, now you got to cover a $3 million note. So now you just bought yourself a very expensive 80-hour a week job.
Intense
is what you just did, because you don't have enough margin now, because those two people were doing a bunch of work and they didn't have that loan. Now you are trying to take out that loan, and now you got half as much money because you're paying your note, and that, like, it's just, and then you get into a very stressful situation, and then you get mean brides being mean to you, and you think, oh, this was so much fun, and you're buried in this debt. And I'm like, man, there's a better way for most. Like, there was a better way for me. And again, COVID really changed a lot of stuff for us in a lot of ways. But so it's very hard for me to say like what I would have done or should have done or changing decisions. But I just warn people getting into the industry, like, that's the real scenario.
Yeah. Joshua, I want to ask kind of a macro question about the industry, post-COVID. You said something right before we got on. You said, it's not a build it and they will come sort of scenario anymore. And, one of the things that I've looked at when I'm looking at the industry is year after year, we've got just barely, maybe slightly less people getting married, or, it's not like every year more and more and more and more people get married than got married the year before. It's either fairly stable or it's just slightly less. But every year, more and more and more venues open. So that creates this storm where you've got more supply than ever before and a fairly static, if not gently lowering demand, which unless you're going to, and people don't want to race to the bottom on price, right? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. And so, yeah, no, I didn't. And that brings up it actually makes me laugh when you say that, because like you see these marketing agencies and they're like, oh, the venue scaling system. I'm like, man, I got 16 dates. That's it. I can't scale my venue. I can sell 60. And if I can sell 45, I'm not too bad. But like, you can't scale your venue. Like, I don't like you. And that's what, like, even like these marketing agencies that want to charge thousands of dollars just to run the same generic Facebook ad they do for everybody else, to put them into the same automations that everyone else does. It just, like, it doesn't make sense to me. Like, because I only have so many days. Yeah, more venues are opening. And I think there's a lot more that are, and I had this conversation with my brother maybe this winter, is the preferences have also been changing. Even though it's staying the same and there's new ones opening, I think there's more closing than people think of. A lot of the ballrooms, a lot of the weird strip mall places, at least in Northeast Ohio. Again, every market is going to be slightly different, right? So if you're in like a weird, quirky downtown area, like in Northeast Ohio, you have downtown weddings in a city, or you have rural farm barn weddings. Like, so, as more of the barn style places have opened over the past decade in Northeast Ohio, I think there's been a shift from like the ballroom style weddings where this is an event center with one caterer. Like I'm the catering company and I'm making half my money on catering and half on a venue fee, like for having the space. And like we're basically a catering company with a space. I think a lot of that is disappearing. I think there's a lot of turnover in that kind of ballroom space. I think you've got to be truly interesting to your market. And that might be something different for everybody, but I think the ballroom market is what's being deleted with the new generation. They want to be outside or they want to be in something kitschy cool, like a weird old mill from 1920 that was restored, or here's this very pretty, this is a better new barn because it's not an old dingy closed up barn. Like every market's going to have something unique that I think like I agree. Like in Ohio, like if you're trying to open a barn in Ohio, like you're going to fight. Like find a guy who's tired of it and buy theirs. Cause there's plenty of them out there, because the truth is the juice. And honestly, like if we, like our Supreme Court case forcing us to be a winery, forcing us to be a bar, technically, like I think we, like most of our profit, like if we didn't have that, like I couldn't pay myself. Mm-hmm. Like it was a YBO place. Like I might be able to book 2 or 3 more weddings. And like we are even cheap on the bar end side. Like a lot of these venues only make profit because they have a $6,000 bar minimum.
Yeah.
And they're charging $8 a beer. Like, and that's where their profit is. So like if you take that away, which is tons of these people in Ohio, again, Ohio is a weirdly saturated market because we got old barns everywhere. So if you don't have that, like you're going to be able to pay yourself. Like you've got a very expensive job at that point. So it's, well, honestly, and I tried to tell the trustees, like, don't sue me. We're going to have to do this and we're going to do this and we're going to be a bar. And I don't really want to do that because now, like, we got yoga coming on like every other Thursday, and so we were working on all these other things. Just again, we've got to diversify it. We have a space that we're only using 3 days a week, 2 days a week, 1 day a week sometimes. Like again, we have all of these costs that need to get covered. So I've spent the last 5 or 6 years really learning how to make wine, finding the right suppliers to get me wine that people like to drink. So I sell a couple of bottle wines almost every tour out the door. And I think that's going to be a change coming up. This is where I want to go. Again, it's operators time versus strategic thinkers time. Right. And then like there's a model to get rid of tours. No one likes them. They seem like it's just, we've done things always we have. So we're going to change to more of a experience for your tour. We're probably going to do free mini shoots once, twice a week, do wine tasting, then your tour questions, and get rid of this back and forth tour. Like, granted, this is why it gets into the other thing that we were talking about with Book Simply. Like, I was just coming back from Colombia. I was just getting out of a relationship with a caterer that it just didn't work out. Like he just didn't have the systems I thought he had. And one of these agencies called and they're like, "Oh, it's so much cheaper than Wedding Wire." I'm like, "Well, it's not really, but I'm going to give you a chance." And I had already kind of automated my system to make sure anyone coming in, we didn't really talk to them until we have a tour. But there was no real program or easy automation out there. I know there's Go High Level, and it's where all these agencies actually use. But but I didn't have the time. I was getting back into roofing. I was getting into this other thing, and I still was dealing with a boat. So I didn't really have a lot of time to focus on operating. Again, this is why like I understand the importance of operating, because you can't do everything. And so I'm like, oh, hey, you guys are promising me this like great venue scaling, whatever system thing. And basically all they did was run generic Facebook ads for like $1,000 a month. And then they were sending automated text messages from their system that I then had to respond to new text messages. I got so many bogus, crappy text messages. And I'm like, and then now you're like trying to make me schedule an appointment. Like, this is worse than what I just did. All you did was give me a bunch of bad leads that I got to text back. And I'm like, there's a better way. So trying to do this thing. They're out of Puerto Rico, mainly cool because of cool tax things. That again, that's a different conversation in Puerto Rico. But so I'm like, okay, I need a solution. And basically they're a combination of Go High Level and ClickFunnels and like 3 other systems that people typically use to run online marketing. And they were trying to do it. I'm like, hey, let me get in here. And I want to build it. I'll pay X amount and I'm going to use it for me. And maybe we'll sell it some stuff in the future. Now you sell to some other markets, now. But for the wedding industry, I'm like, everyone's complaint that I've ever got that comes here. And again, I'd say 80% of our tours, if not, are their first stop, which is good and bad, because normally need to see more than one space to make a decision, right? So, but it's because of the ease of the way we make a system. I don't answer phone calls. Someone calls and asks me about pricing. I say, did you click the request pricing button? And if they say no, I say, I'm going to send you a text. And I text them the link to fill it out. And I only get like 1 or 2 of those calls a month now, but we get 3 to 5 pricing inquiries every single day. And they request pricing and they get the pricing, and then they now get added value videos. So like, what's going to separate me apart, right? So you get your pricing, everyone's going to give you pricing, and it's all going to be roughly the same. Like, it's going to be roughly the same inclusions, and you're going to get your tables. You're going to get, like, it's all, wedding websites are almost all the same. Yeah. And there's a guy who's real smart with SEO that is for photographers, but I follow him because it's honestly, there's a lot of crossover knowledge in that photographers for venues. And he calls it the price shopper shuffle. So they show up on your website and they click, okay, that looks pretty. That looks pretty. Oh, there's the gallery. Okay, where's the pricing? They're off your site in 30 seconds. They've already got all the information from you. You went into a basket. And now Google says your site is not anything, because you only had it on the site for 30 seconds. So now you're going to get deranked, and you're going to rank lower for things you really, for that person you want. So you have to site for minutes for Google to think you're relevant to them. Because if they can get all the information in 30 seconds, Google's going to think you're a low volume site and get off of it. And then you're just going to go into a price shopper. So everything you do on your website, you want to have it a narrative. And then you've got to get them into a funnel to bring them back. Because if you got repeat visitors, now Google thinks you're really smart. And now Google thinks, okay, this person who was on this site for a minute last time, I'm here for a minute this time, and you did it coming back multiple times, you're going to rank so much higher than anyone else. So everything you do, it's geared toward bringing everyone back to our site. So you get a pricing email, and I make you leave the site. We're getting a ton of bad emails, like just bad emails. Too many like not deliberate messages. So no one got pricing right now. You get it in your emails. Basically, you have to click another link to come back. And then now you're in a new session. So now Google is, bam, oh, this person came back to the site. Your site is valuable to us. And then that's where we go into, so my first story is like what's included. And then because we're competing with a lot of BYOB places, and people don't really people think they see one place that's $45 per person. Your buddy who's not bringing your own alcohol is going to be priced like that. Or $8 a beer and $10 a mixed drink like a bar. So we got to educate them like, hey, we're not that crazy. We don't want to treat you like you're at Brown Stadium. Like, it's just because you have to buy our alcohol, just break you off because you have to have it. So we have really, really fair pricing. And so a video, like the second video was, hey, here's our bar value. And like, you don't have to do any work. You just tell me what on. Here's the pricing. It's very simple. You don't got to go buy it. You don't got to take it home. You don't got to get ice. You don't. So all the things that makes that valuable to us. And then the next video is, hey, why don't you have a Friday wedding? Because people don't maybe understand the value of saving money, other than just saving money. Like, other than saving money, why would I have a Friday wedding? Well, there's a lot of reasons I would do it. So I tell them. And then they get a Sunday video. They get an insurance video. And we're just now rolling out a new market. And I think this is where venues can really add a lot of revenue in affiliate marketing. We're teamed up with a guy guys make custom suits. And I can get a whole bridal party, a custom suit for roughly $200. Made to measure. They're awesome suits. You can't rent suits for that, but people don't know that. So that's one of the things I'm rolling out is, and then we make 20% commission. And all we're doing is telling people, hey, here is a better option for you than renting. Why rent when you can buy? So like there's a ton of these opportunities. There's a paper company. And one thing we did start is, again, being the first venue that people are seeing is hard.
Yeah.
Because people don't know what they don't know. And so when you get your pricing and you get all these emails, and everything in our emails directs you back to the site to where you can check availability and make a tour. So I don't talk to anybody until they come and make a tour. So it's one of those complicated, not complicated things, right? Like, if you set it up properly first, and then and this is also why I would never go back with an agency, because I don't know what those agencies are doing in their automations. I don't know what value they're providing. They're not promoting my brand. I'm the face. When people show up for a tour, they've watched my videos. They know who I am.
Yeah.
I've already built a relationship. But if you're just like generic automations that they put out for everybody, there's no value there.
Yeah.
And
that's a great point.
So we ended up building this big thing, and I other people other things. And, but that's the biggest complaint I've heard from brides is like, it was so easy to get your information. You provided us so much information. And like, I email these other people. I'm like, hey, where's your pricing? Hey, what dates do you have available? Or it's on their website, and then no one responds back for tours. And if they respond back for tours, it's like, so our system does everything in it, from requesting pricing, whatever kind of emails you want, to then each segment. So when someone shows up for a tour, we mark them as that they showed up, and they get another set, or we mark them as didn't show up, and then we send them different emails. And then most of that all gets them into an online contract that's, again, all in the same system. And again, you sign the contract, and this is what I think, like, you sign that contract, like, there are so many steps from going from contract to wedding date. And again, unless you're an operator, and I've seen planners with just big spreadsheets of like keeping track of stuff. If you can build the right automation for you, again, not every contract, not every person needs all the same automations, or there's a way you can create tasks on a board that, hey, when X amount of days after the contract, it give me a task to do, then I got to log in and click. And so it really has helped us as far as like keeping organized of like, oh, wait, that person hasn't paid yet. Why is that guy still not paid? Like and honestly, I still do this. I don't, again, I've got a fancy system, but it's not whether you have a fancy system, it's whether you use it right, right?
Yeah.
Again, I'm not a great operator. I'm a strategic thinker guy. So you still have to use it. Someone has to do it right. And like we got May weddings that have only paid a deposit. And I'm like, hey, I got your alcohol bill. We just did that. You still owe us you're going to owe us like $6,000 the week before the wedding. That's not going to make people happy. No. So there's all those sorts of like things that fall through the cracks without the proper systems. And that's kind of what I was trying to do with this is build in. Now you gotta do, and then you actually have to use it. Now I don't use it as well. Like, again, it's also why I wasn't making it public for other people. Like, I'm not a software salesman. I don't like, here's all the cool features that you should use. Well, like, I don't do it well enough. To even like, so I've never felt confident like saying like we've made it available. I've dropped a link a couple times. I've done some calls, but like, and again, that's like, if you go with one of these agencies that tries to automate a bunch of this stuff, and then you're just like, man, I don't want to pay $1,000 or $1,500 a month for this anymore, plus the ad spend and whatever, you lose all of your data.
Yeah.
It's not yours. Yeah. It's the agency's. So even if you're going to hire an agency, you should own your automations. And that was the other thing I really was like, man, we paid to generate 1,000 contacts in our market. 1,000 contacts, I could sell them all sorts of things. Yeah. That our venue, like after 2 weeks, like suits, cookie classes, winemaking classes. I can team up with the board and brush to do get a commission on saying, hey, you guys need custom wedding signs. Stop doing generic things from Hobby Lobby. Let's go to this class and have this event. But now I no longer have any of this data because it was the agencies. They claimed ownership over it. And I got nothing over. And I paid dollars to them to run generic ads and generate all this data for me. And it's gone. So that's why like there's a lot of services we could provide to people who need them in Book Simply, but I'm not an agency. I don't want to be an agency, to be honest. Like, but there is, again, like we were talking, there's a learning gap of a lot of people that do need a more done for you service, that do need more educated, like that don't know how to run Facebook ads. Like, it's not complicated, guys. Facebook's got enough information. You could run your own ads. Yeah. In 12 minutes, for free. And you don't need a $1,000 a month for a guy to do it once.
True. And you probably, know this, but you can go to the Facebook ad library and literally see the Facebook ads that other people are running. Just and do what's working. Because you can also see how long they've been running that one specific ad. And when they started a new ad, how long.
Oh, yeah. And because I'm always updating my own site and we're always adding new content. And then in the group, people ask, I'm not going to say stupid questions, but like annoying questions. Like, oh my gosh, how are you in this business asking this question? Like, how are you this far down the line? Like, granted, I was in the same place, but there's so much, like, the internet was not a thing when we first started. Like, it was, but it wasn't. Even 10 years ago. Like, the internet is not what it is now. And there's so much information that you can get before you do anything than it's ever been available. And like, they're coming in these groups asking the most generic questions, and they need specific answers. Like, hey, I'm in this town and this is my problem. You have people from all over the world in a group, right? We're not zoning officials in your town or state, or like, you need real help. But wait, again, I don't think enough people know the sunk cost fallacy. Like, sometimes like you really should just quit and leave. But I think it's that kind of dreamer atmosphere in this, like, that attracts this kind of business model. Like, right? Like, it's so, like, I love weddings. I love love. It's so much fun.
Yeah.
And like, you get to a point, like, you won't, and like, you're like, I've invested this much time, I've invested this much money, and they just can't get away from it. Like, even though like anyone who's also gone down that road is like, man, that's going to be a train wreck. You need help.
Yeah. Don't do it. No.
Name on any of these. Yeah. Like, I drop your name on any of these posts that are like this, because I'm like, oh my gosh,
What's happening?
Jonathan seems like a great guy who's more patient than me. What's that?
No. Yeah. It's totally true. And I so appreciate you do that. But no, I was saying the level, the amount of things, just the volume of things people have no idea about. And honestly, we didn't have any idea going into it. I can't even pretend. The scale, the fire hose that we've had to learn through, not just one, because we took on in our by our third year, we had 4 venues, 3 venues that we were managing. The first, we also had just gone through COVID. So it was like the most painful thing that we ever could have done. And, you know, we survived through it. But because of that, we've been able to learn 3, 4, 5. Now we're getting ready to take on our 9th property. And it's like, and they're all in radically different areas, in different states and all that. So you kind of like, you get to a certain, like, what is normal across the board? And then what is something we have to be really specific about for your zip code area, whatever.
Yeah, no. And that's the fact that you guys are in so many places and can actually keep clients. And that's the thing is, I always go back to like this agency. And again, it goes back to Book Simply, like, agencies just like, if any young kid saying they owned a venue and they did this, and now they're a marketing agency, like, where's their venue? Like, almost all of the agency things are fake. And like, coming from the roofing industry, like, every other day there's a new roofing marketing agency, and they only, like, even the programs that these guys are, basically these young kids buy these programs, how you can make 10 figures a month. And they're like, hey, you run Facebook ads, and then you only need 10 clients to make this much money. And then you need this much, like, but they spend more of their time selling new clients than they actually do managing old clients, because everyone just gets jammed into a system that's generic for everybody. And they don't care if you're with them only 6 months. They're going to take that money. And I don't care what anyone says. They don't care about your business. Especially the roof. Like, again, I'm coming from roofing, which is cutthroat. You can buy a ladder tomorrow at Home Depot, and I could make you a roofer in whatever city you're in. Like, so like, you want to talk about competition. And then, so then now you have all these agencies who you're just like promising the world, like, I'm going to get you X amount of leads. And then I come and like start looking at the wedding industry, and it's the same kind of like vultures. They're like, you seem desperate. I'm going to get you all of these leads. Ditch Wedding Wire. Ditch this. They're jerks. I'm better. And you're not better. You're just trying to get a client for 6 to 8 months. Your client churn is outrageous. Because like no one, like the churn, all they care about is having X amount in their pipeline at a time. And they're going to have a certain amount of churn, and they don't even care. All the data that I lost, they don't even know how to use it, because that's not their business. They don't know those clients. They don't know how to sell to those clients. They know how to sell to desperate venue owners who are tired and stressed out and thinking, how am I going to get more people to more tours? And like, and it's the easiest thing. Like, to me, marketing is such an important part of who you are as a brand.
Yeah.
Why would you outsource your message to someone else? Because like, people think, oh, they're gonna book here because it's pretty. No, you know why they book here? Because my mom was really nice to them. Yeah. Like, yes, it's really pretty, but like, there's 3 things people buy on. They buy on, no matter what it is, the company or the venue. They believe that the company will deliver on what they say they're going to deliver. And then the salesperson is the person who is the face that they meet. So if you get a bunch of generic ads and you're in a generic funnel, you're going to overcome way more in your tours. Like you're competing on something now differently. You've now got to educate them. You got to get them to like you. You've got to, now the stories I hear about venue tours where people show up, they're like, hey, the door's unlocked. Come find me if you have any questions. Like and then you just walk around and again, it gets into the whole like, no, that's like that, like you laugh, but that is a typical barn tour in Northeast Ohio.
Wow.
People show up and they basically hand them some information and then say, come find me if you have questions. And then they go about doing whatever else. It's weird. It's a weird phenomenon. I don't know how people, again, it also gets back to that thing I was saying, like people got into this business and didn't realize how much time it actually takes.
Yeah.
So they don't have the systems. They weren't prepared to have an actual sales conversation.
Yeah.
Like, what do you even need? Is this even a fit? What are you trying to do? What are you trying to accomplish? And that's why like so many venues are going to, restricted lists where they make commissions because they need that extra money.
They need the extra money.
I'm going to say, okay.
Thanks. Yeah.
You can pick 3 people now because I'm going to make 20% on all their food orders and they're going to charge you an extra crap ton. So it's one of those like, but the venue owner now realizes they need that money. And then they realize the logistics of letting whoever they want, like how much extra work it is for us to deal with new caterers who don't know the layout. They don't show up beforehand. This is the one thing that bothers me the most is it's photographers and caterers who don't show up to a venue they've never been at before. Like you're giving a terrible product to your client and I'm getting blamed for it. As a photographer, we have 32 actors here. I can find you some. I've got a really cool 1950s tractor up on a hill under apple trees. I've had one photographer take pictures with it because I pointed it out to the bride at the tour. They don't pre-scout. They don't come and understand. Like they treat these brides like they're just a regular commodity. They show up. They like, especially on a big farm venue, like you really need to know where the best photo spots are. And if you're a photographer who shows up half hour before the bride and starts going right into all the details, like
not enough time.
You're going to miss so much great stuff. Like, and you're not just, you don't have the time to actually see what's out there. You got the venue, which is great. It's pretty, but it's not as interesting as that bride might think it should be. Like, I don't know. I think there's a lot of missed value and stuff like that. Same thing with the caterers who just show up and they're like, where do I put my vape table? Where do I do this? What do you mean? You could have called me last week, last month. Why are you doing this now?
Yeah.
And so especially with venues that are new and again, not been around the block, like they're not even going to know that that's an issue. That's why this podcast is so great. Is like, hopefully more people getting into the industry or watching to understand like that's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Like this is not being a host of a party.
Yeah. Well, and Joshua, I really appreciate your candor and your, radical transparency about this because I don't think a lot of people share that. I don't think a lot of people are willing to be open about some of the different hurdles and things that they've had to overcome. They just want to talk about, we're fully booked. And whether that means 20 events or whether that means 100 events, we don't know. Flex, and so, yeah, thanks for, being willing to be transparent like that. It's awesome. It's really good.
Oh yeah, no, it's one of those, it's the good Lord has given me a lot of struggles. And honestly, since COVID, I don't know if I've had it. Like, and I was in a conversation with someone else and, they ask me how, like when people ask me how things are going, and honestly, I don't know if I have a good answer for anybody. Like, how are things going? Honestly, you want to know the truth? Like, I don't know if the good Lord has given me anything good since COVID, other than my life and my children. And like, we're moving forward each day in faith. Like, that's what I got. I've had a lot of more downs in the past 5-6 years than I've had ups.
Yeah.
And like, I think people only want to talk about the ups. And like, I think that does a disservice.
Yeah. Especially for this industry.
Especially to yourself.
100%.
Especially to yourself. Like, be honest. Like, we can say, yeah, things are not going as I expected it to. But you know what? That's okay. It's not the end of the world. It's not like, yes, it like financially that's bad. But I think so much like I'm a Christian, and I was reading Ecclesiastes, and when I was a young person, Ecclesiastes used to make me very depressed. Everything's meaningless. I wanted to work so hard. I wanted to achieve so much, and I was going to burn the world down and subdue it. And then you read Ecclesiastes and it's all meaningless. But now I read it as an older person. Now I just turned 40 yesterday. And it's like, you miss the message in that, because the whole message of Ecclesiastes is, yes, life is meaningless, but enjoy the lot God has given you. If you are rich, enjoy the lot God has given you. If you're struggling, enjoy it. This is the life God has given you. No matter what your life is, it is His gift to you. You are where you are right now. Now, you might think it's a terrible spot to be. You might think it's really hard. You might be struggling. You might envision your life as something different. But the message is enjoy where you are, where God puts you, when He puts you there. And that's why I think I can be so honest, because like, I'm not here because I did really good. I'm not here because I did a bunch of bad stuff. And like, I made a bunch of poor decisions. Like, I could beat myself up and be like, I should have made this decision or that decision or changed that decision. But like, no, like, let's be honest. Like, this is where we are. This is all the things that's happened. And we're here because God puts us here on purpose for a reason. And we might never know what that reason is. And that's okay. Yeah. And so it's one of those things is I can be 100% honest because I'm 100% honest with myself.
Yeah.
Like, I've made bad decisions, but I can't change those decisions. And like, why am I here? Is it because I'm such a terrible person and dumb? No, like that. I'm here because God put me here. And what do? I move forward each day. And like, there's the Disney quote, and there was the movie with the mechanic guys. It's keep moving forward. No matter where you are, keep moving forward.
Yeah.
Good or bad. If you think you are so smart and you're doing great, you're wrong. Just keep moving forward. Like, don't take so much pride in yourself. Like, you did all these great things. You're so smart. Because you know what? That could be gone tomorrow. And that's what happened in COVID. Like, my life has been more down than anything since COVID. But it's not because of anything other than the world working. And you know what we're going to do? We're going to move forward in it.
Yeah.
And I think especially in venue. No, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. You just have to have that same, it brings the lows up and it brings the highs down emotionally, and it allows you to live a happier life regardless, because like you said, COVID will happen, stuff will happen, recessions will happen, economic cycles, et cetera, et cetera. So that's a great note. Joshua, I would love to, if I'm ever your way, we're going to have to do an in-person one, because the connection I know on this one was a little choppy, like the internet connection. I think the audio is just stunning, and we're going to be great, on that level. But I want to do a follow-up recording with you just to talk. I mean, I have all the questions about the hiring.
Yeah. And, I will do it from,
No, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, no, it's a bandwidth thing. So, no, yeah, and I'll do it from not my venue where our internet is a little bit stronger. And I think just the again, the bandwidth issue of recording sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes the recording eats up a little bit extra here and there. So yeah, honestly, anytime you want to talk, I will jump on a call with you. And again, I don't even like, again, I believe God does what God does, but I've watched a bunch of your podcasts and stuff, and made some comments on the YouTube stuff and whatnot. And it's one of those, you understand the operations of things, coming from a restaurant to staff. Like, oh my gosh, there is not a chance you could convince me to like try to staff. Oh my goodness. I just don't. I think like I couldn't build the systems to keep people in place, to rotate them over when they call out sick. Like, I would never be a caterer. Like, I would never, I've got so many awesome catering ideas that I could blow any caterer out of the water. But you know what? I'm not doing that kind of work. I know what I don't know, and I'm not going to get into that. But it's one of those things is like, you can tell that you know what most people don't know, or at least you know what you don't know, and you will spend the time to learn it. And I think that's so refreshing. Again, like you were saying, so many people were like, only tell you about all the great things.
Yeah.
And yeah, I could tell you about the great things. I could tell you about the 50 weddings and all the, like, I could probably be one of the top Buffalo Trace distributors in the region if all I did was like, I could tell you all sorts of good things, but like, that's not the realistic picture that I think people need. You can go, everyone say everything's great. Like, and I'll tell people ask me, would you do this again? I say, no. I had one guy after, a wedding, great family, like a really great family. And I was talking to his dad, who runs some sort of electrician company, and he was standing there and he's like, would you do this again? I'm like, absolutely not. And this is like 11 o'clock. A bunch of drunk people are cleaned up. And I'm like, absolutely not. The kid's like, he looked at me. He's like, dude, you're living the dream. And I'm like, dude, you don't understand. I've been here. It's 11. I've been here probably since 10. My mom was here for a bunch of time. My brother stopped, like, did a couple hours of work here. And like, I got to pay everyone. And I got to be all this time here, or I got to pay another person. Yeah. Like, he's like, come dig electrical digits with me. I'm like, yes, please. It would just be so refreshing to go do something where like I had to do was one task and just like focus on one thing.
Yeah, it's definitely not just one task, even close.
Yeah. It's not just the fun part of the party that he saw all night, where I got to eat cheap barbecue on a buffet and have a beer, because like I can have a beer at my own venue and no one's going to complain at me. Because I'm not actually the bartender. So like, I don't have to follow any of those roles so it's one of those things is people don't see beyond the flashy lights and decorations. They only see those well set up. They don't see how the cookie's made.
Yeah.
And
Josh, on that note, thank you for letting us see how the cookie's made, because this was great. This was awesome. And I'm fascinated about the pirate ship story and just kind of what you're doing with that. So let's schedule another time to chat, and we'll stay connected, of course, after we jump off the podcast. But yeah, thanks so much for coming on the show today, man. This was great. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. And anytime you just want to call and I'll give you a daily dose of truth if you want. I don't know. Just send me a question. You want more like candid stuff, for other venue owners. Just ask me the question first. I'll tell the truth. And then you can ask someone else who's going to give you the fluff. And then you can edit it into something funny for the InstaWebs.
Sweet. Amazing. All right. If people want to get a hold of you, they want to get that dose of truth from you. Do you want them to go to the Forever Farms Winery email? What's the best way to contact you?
Well, if you want to know more about how you can automate and take control of your marketing and business, go to booksimply.com. I'll make sure you get the link and contact. But yeah, if you just go to the Forever Farms, Google that phone number, comes right to me, send me a text. I don't know what number is on the Book Simply. We use Google Voice for everything, so it can ring multiple people's numbers. But yeah, the main number for Forever Farms comes to me. Again, if you want to know about automating, owning your data, how you can get all that kind of stuff done for you. If you want to do it yourself, or if you want me to do it for you, again, it's one of those, I don't know who you are, so it's hard for me to do something for someone, which is why we haven't rolled out like an official done for you system. But it's one of those, I never set out to be an agency, but there's such a big need in the industry of getting so much work off of your plate without having to hire a VA or an assistant and having a big cost that, again, venues are expensive. There's a lot of fixed costs. You don't need another one. Mm-hmm. So I would like to help you automate some of your time to, again, free up people's tasks from copy and paste. And so if you go on Book Simply, you can make a demo. You can schedule a time to call me right on the thing, booking a demo. And just, that's probably the easiest. If you book a demo, it goes on my calendar. I can't miss it. Even if it's just a conversation. That way I don't know.
Awesome. Cool. Well, hey, Joshua, thanks so much for coming on today. This was great. Thanks for being here.
No. Thank you for understanding and not just calling me a big jerk like some of the people in the groups.
No way. You're awesome, man.
All right. Thanks, Jonathan. If you need anything, just shoot me a text.
Will do.
Pardon the interruption, I wanted to take a moment and share with you about WEVA. WEVA stands for Wedding and Event Venue Association, and it is a professional association custom built for venue owners and operators. We felt like there was a lack of resources, community, education, and networking available specifically for our industry, and so we recently started this association, and it's been growing by the day. We would love to extend an invite to you, so please click the link in the description or wherever you're watching this video, and we would love to welcome you into the community.